Pele. He didn't just arrive, he erupted. In the 1958 World Cup, at just 17, he tore through defenders like they weren't even there. But in the 1962 tournament, something happened that forced FIFA to rethink a crucial part of the game. In Brazil's second group match, Pele pulled a groin muscle. There were no substitutions allowed for injuries at that time. If a player went down, his team had to keep playing with one less man. So Brazil, the reigning champs, had to finish the rest of the tournament without their biggest star. That wasn't just bad luck, it was bad structure, and fans knew it. Broadcasters, coaches, and even opposing teams all agreed. It didn't make sense. That moment, and others like it, pushed FIFA to act. They realized injuries shouldn't punish an entire team. A few years later, in 1965, substitution rules were introduced, starting with just one sub per game. It sounds tiny now, but it was revolutionary. Eventually, that expanded to 2, then 3, and today, it's up to 5. Pele didn't get to benefit from it in '62, but the pain of watching a legend sidelined sparked a rule change that reshaped how the game is played, coached, and strategized, even today. Lev Yashin. He was a nightmare for strikers. The Soviet goalkeeper played like he had 8 arms. That's why they called him the Black Spider. He wasn't just good, he was impossible. Back in the 1950s and 60s, penalty takers had a massive edge. The rules gave goalkeepers almost no room to react. They had to stay on their line, stiff and square, with barely any movement allowed until the ball was kicked. But Yashin wasn't having it. He'd bounce, sway, wave his arms, anything to throw off the shooter's rhythm. And it worked. He saved over 150 penalties in his career, an insane number, especially for that era. Strikers complained, referees were confused, and FIFA? They realized the rules were too vague, so they rewrote them. Eventually, goalkeepers were allowed a bit more freedom, like keeping just one foot on the line instead of both and being able to move side to side before the kick, as long as they didn't step forward too early. Yashin didn't just change how keepers played, he changed how penalties were taken. Every goalkeeper today who dances on the line or tries to stretch the rules? That all started with the man in black who refused to play scared. Johan Cruyff. He didn't believe in playing by the book, he believed in changing it. By the time the 1980s rolled around, Cruyff had already transformed football with total football, but he wasn't done. In 1982, during a match for Ajax, he stepped up to take a penalty, but instead of shooting, he passed the ball sideways. Teammate Jesper Olsen was in on it. He sprinted in, touched it back to Cruyff, and Cruyff calmly slotted it past a stunned keeper. It looked casual, but what he'd just done was push the rulebook to its limit. The laws of the game allowed indirect penalties, as long as the ball moved forward and the second player touched it legally, but almost no one ever dared to try it. The referees panicked. Some leagues banned it on the spot. FIFA had to step in to clarify things. They rewrote the interpretation of the rule, stating that the ball must clearly move forward and the second player couldn't enter the box too early. No more gray areas. Today, that type of penalty is rare, but it's still legal, thanks to Cruyff. He reminded everyone that football is art, not just structure. That moment didn't just change how penalties could be taken, it challenged what the sport could look like. Diego Maradona. His Hand of God goal in 1986 is probably the most infamous moment in football history. But beyond the drama and controversy, it exposed something deeper. There was no safety net for referees, no replay, no way to fix a mistake that ended up deciding a World Cup quarterfinal. The play itself was outrageous. In the 51st minute against England, Maradona jumped, too short to beat the keeper with his head. But instead of heading it, he punched the ball in with his fist. Everyone saw it except the referee. The goal stood, and just 4 minutes later, he dribbled through half of England's team to score what many call the greatest goal of all time. One moment of deception, one moment of genius. But that first goal, it lit a fire under FIFA. Fans were losing trust. People started asking, how can one mistake cost a country its dream? Change didn't come fast. It took decades of pressure, dozens of controversies, and constant lobbying from fans, players, and broadcasters. But it all traces back to Maradona. In 2018, FIFA finally introduced VAR, the video assistant referee, at the World Cup. For the first time, referees could review goals, penalties, and red cards using video. It came too late for England in '86. But without that moment, without the hand of God, football might have kept resisting change. Maradona forced FIFA to face a hard truth. Some mistakes are just too big to ignore. Rene Higuita. In the early 90s, the Colombian keeper was more entertainer than shot stopper. He didn't just save goals, he dribbled past strikers, he pulled off scorpion kicks, and the most frustrating part for defenders, he loved back passes. He'd stand over the ball, juggling it, daring anyone to come close. At the 1990 World Cup, Higuita turned ball hogging into an art. Colombia kept passing it back to him again and again. No pressure, no punishment, just wasted time while he danced around his own box. It wasn't just annoying, it slowed the game down completely. And he wasn't the only one doing it. Keepers across the tournament were using the same trick. Back then, goalkeepers could pick up any back pass from a teammate and hold the ball as long as they wanted. Fans were bored. Players were frustrated. FIFA had seen enough. In 1992, they introduced the back pass rule. If a teammate deliberately passes the ball using their feet, the keeper can't pick it up. If they do, it's an indirect free kick for the other team, right there inside the box. That rule changed football forever. It forced goalkeepers to get good with their feet, made time wasting harder, and opened the door to the modern sweeper keeper. Higuita was never punished, but his wild style gave FIFA the perfect example of what had to change. Jean-Marc Bosman. He was a solid midfielder, nothing flashy, not a superstar. But in 1990, he made a decision that would end up changing the entire football transfer system. His contract with Belgian club RFC Liège had expired, and he wanted to move to Dunkirk in France. Simple enough, except Liège blocked the move and demanded a transfer fee, even though his contract had already ended. Back then, that was legal. Clubs could still hold on to players after their contracts ran out. The system gave all the power to clubs and none to the players. But Bosman didn't accept that. He took the club, and eventually UEFA and FIFA, to court. He fought for 5 years. He lost his career, his finances collapsed, he struggled with depression. But in 1995, the European Court of Justice ruled in his favor. The verdict: players in the EU had the right to leave on a free transfer after their contracts expired. It became known as the Bosman ruling, and it changed everything. Suddenly, stars like Edgar Davids and Steve McManaman could move for free. Clubs had to rethink contracts. Players had leverage. Agents became essential. The transfer market exploded. Bosman never got rich. He never played at the top again. But he made football fairer for every player who came after. Today, when someone signs on a free, it all goes back to Jean-Marc Bosman, the man who risked everything to stand up for players' rights. Oliver Kahn. He was a force of nature, fierce, vocal, and insanely good between the posts. But he also mastered something goalkeepers were never punished for: wasting time. In the early 2000s, Kahn, like many keepers, took his time on every goal kick, especially when Bayern or Germany had the lead. He'd bounce the ball, walk around, reset, do it again. It became a routine, like a stage performance, and nothing in the rulebook really stopped him. Fans hated it, opponents were furious, referees tried to hurry him, but it rarely led to bookings. And it wasn't just Kahn, it became a league-wide problem. By the mid-2000s, time wasting had turned into a strategy, not a foul. The pressure kept growing. Broadcasters started counting seconds. Data showed goalkeepers were holding the ball for 15, 20, even 30 seconds. It ruined the flow of games, so FIFA stepped in. In 2000, they introduced the 6-second rule. A goalkeeper could only hold the ball in their hands for 6 seconds before releasing it. But even then, it wasn't enforced strictly enough. The real change came much later. After years of keepers bending the rule, FIFA began testing stricter enforcement in 2023, adding timekeepers and automatic delays. The rule became clearer, and yellow cards for time wasting spiked across major tournaments. Oliver Kahn never got a yellow for it, but his era made the issue too obvious to ignore. The rule exists today because legends like Kahn showed us exactly how much the game needed it. Luis Suárez. You can't talk about rule changes without talking about Luis Suárez. Not for a foul, not for a dive, but for biting. It sounds insane, but he did it 3 times. First in 2010 with Ajax, then in 2013 with Liverpool, and finally at the 2014 World Cup when he bit Italy's Giorgio Chiellini on the shoulder. No red card, no foul called. Chiellini showed the mark to the referees, but play continued. The world was furious. Again. FIFA knew they had to respond. Within 24 hours, Suarez was hit with a 9-match international ban and suspended from all football-related activity for 4 months. That meant no club games, no training, no entering a stadium, an unprecedented punishment. But it didn't stop there. Suarez's case led to a formal rewrite of FIFA's disciplinary guidelines. From then on, violent conduct off the ball, including biting, spitting, or any kind of hidden assault, could be punished even if the referees missed it using video evidence. The message was clear: the referees might miss it, VAR might miss it, but if you break the code of the game, you're getting punished. No exceptions. Suarez still came back. He won trophies, he scored goals, but he also made FIFA realize that the ugliest moments needed the clearest rules. Neymar. Let's be honest, he has got the skills: dribbling, flair, vision. He's electric. But for years, one thing followed him everywhere: the flops. Every tackle looked like a sniper shot. He'd roll on the ground, clutching his ankle like it was broken, then pop back up in 30 seconds. It became a meme during the 2018 World Cup. He spent over 14 minutes on the ground across 5 matches. But here's the thing, a lot of those fouls were real. Neymar took more hits than almost anyone. Defenders didn't know how to stop him cleanly, but the exaggeration made it hard to tell what was real and what wasn't. Fans were frustrated, the referees were confused, and FIFA had a problem. Diving or simulation was ruining the game's flow and credibility. So they acted. Starting in 2018, VAR was allowed to review simulation even after the whistle. If a player was caught faking contact, they could be booked retroactively. In leagues like the Premier League, players could even face suspensions after the match, based on video review. The rule wasn't just about Neymar, but his antics and the global attention they got forced FIFA and domestic leagues to make diving a punishable offense in a way it hadn't been before. Neymar's theatrics made millions laugh, but they also made the rulebook a little stricter. Lionel Messi. He didn't force FIFA's hand with violence or controversy. He did it with intelligence and a little creativity. In 2016, during a La Liga match against Celta Vigo, Messi lined up for kickoff and didn't pass the ball backward. Instead, he tapped it forward. Luis Suárez ran up, touched it again, and then they really got going. It looked odd, almost wrong, but technically it wasn't, and that's exactly the point. Until then, FIFA's laws of the game said the ball had to move forward at kickoff, but it created confusion. Teams would accidentally pass it sideways or backward and get penalized. Or even worse, attackers would get caught offside within seconds because of the weird positioning. After years of inconsistencies, Messi's tap-and-go moment showed how clunky the rule really was. A few months later, IFAB updated the law. Now, the ball can be played in any direction from kickoff. It sounds small, but it had a big impact. Teams started using more creative kickoffs, and setups became more fluid. So yeah, Messi didn't yell or dive or fight. He just played the game smarter than the rulebook, and the rulebook had to adjust. If you liked this one, give it a like, share it with a football friend, hit subscribe for more stories like this, and watch the next video right here.